So those of you that didn't get it copied down, here's your homework. Please copy it down at this time. All right, number 4, what's the equation say, please? All right, so is this standard form, vertex form, or intercept form? Vertex. So what are the 3 key values? A, H, and K. So remember, in standard form, the 3 values are A, B, C. In vertex form, the values are A, H, K. In intercept form, A, P, Q. All right, so what's my A? What's the number in front of the parentheses? 1, because we're multiplying, and multiplication by 1 is what doesn't change anything, right? The only reason why K will be 0 up here is because it's plus K in the statement, right, in your equation. So what can you add to a statement that doesn't change the values? 0, right? Adding 1 changes things. Adding 0 doesn't change anything. Up here we have multiplication. So what can you multiply by that doesn't make any changes? Multiply by 1. Everybody all right with why that's a 1 versus a 0? So what do we know about H? It has to what? Right, opposite. It has to change its sign. So what's my H? -4. All right, so for my vertex, right? What are the coordinates of my vertex? H and K. So what's my H? What's my K? All right, axis of symmetry is X equals what? There you go. Right, the H or the X coordinate of the vertex, either way you want to word it. And then we have X, Y. What goes in the middle? The vertex. And then I need 2 numbers that are what? Okay, 2 bigger, 2 smaller, and then I plug in and go, right? So what's -3 plus 4? Squared? -2 plus 4. Squared. -5 plus 4. -1. Squared. -6 plus 4. -2 squared. All right, so when I graph, what do I start with? The axis of symmetry. So is it solid or dashed? Dashed, and it's what kind of a line? Vertical, horizontal, or skew? It's vertical. So I go to X equals -4. The only time we flip something is when it's in parentheses and we're pulling it through the parentheses. So like P and Q both flip because we'll have parentheses, and H flips because it's inside parentheses, but K is outside. So it just stays as it is. All right, so vertical line at, was it 4 or -4? All right. What are the coordinates to the vertex? -4 what? Oh, okay. And then at -3 we're at 1, at -2 we're at 4, right? At -4 we're at 1, and at -5 we're at 4. So everybody see we have our U shape, right? Is this pointing up or down? It's pointing up, which makes perfect sense because our A was what? Our A was +1, right? So positive A means the graph points up. So now you just connect your dots as best as you're able. Label axis of symmetry and your vertex. And there you go. There's your graph. Is everybody okay with graphing, you think, maybe, possibly? All right, for 15, which is the only other one that I have to do that I'm going to graph, I'm going to just focus on the page of information. If you need to see the graph, I'll do it real quick, but if you're good with it, I'm not going to waste your time. Okay? All right. Any last-minute questions on vertex form? On graphing it and or getting the page of information? All right, so remember, this is worth 3 points. This is worth 7 points. So this page is what really, really matters. Okay? And then the pictures will come with more practice. But this is what I need you to be precise and accurate on. Okay? Number 26, number 15. Can somebody read number 15, please, for me? So when we graph this, again, we have to identify what form we have. So is this standard form, vertex form, or intercept form? Intercept. How do you know? You have 2 different sets of parentheses with different information in. Okay? So key values for intercept form are A, P, and Q. So A comes from the front like always. What's my A value? 3. So is this going to point up or down? Up. So does it have a minimum or a maximum? Minimum. All right. My P. What's my P value? Negative 2. Remember, whenever the value is inside parentheses, when you pull it out, it has to change its sign. Everybody okay with that? Yes, no? All right, so what's my Q? Negative 6. Now, let me get set up here. Uno momento. Step form. How do you find the x-coordinate of the vertex? What's the little formula? P plus Q over 2. So what's my P value? Negative 2. What's my Q? Negative 6. All over 2. What's negative 2 plus negative 6? Negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. So that is my x-coordinate. Everybody okay? Yes or no? All right. So in order to find my y-coordinate, I take the x and I plug it back into the equation, right? But how many x's do I have in my equation here? 2. So how many times am I substituting? 2. So take your statement just as it looks, but wherever I see x, replace it with what? Negative 4. So I get negative 4 plus 2 in the first set of parentheses, negative 4 plus 6 in the second set of parentheses. And then I follow my order of operations, which says I have to do what's inside the parentheses first. So what is negative 4 plus 2? And negative 4 plus 6? Positive 2, right? What's 3 times negative 2? Negative 6 times 2? Negative 12. So I get negative 12 for my y-coordinate. Axis of symmetry is going to be at x equals what? Negative 4, because it always matches the x-coordinate of the vertex. All right? Any pressing moment or any pressing questions at the moment? And as always, what goes in the middle? The vertex. I go 2 points above, 2 points below. Now, when I evaluate this, I'm going to do it the same way as what I did for the y there. I'm going to plug in the x value, do what's inside the parentheses, do what's inside the second set of parentheses, so I have 3 numbers, and then multiply all 3 numbers together. So my x value here is negative 3, right? So plug it in here. What's negative 3 plus 2? Negative 1. So far I have a 3 and I have a negative 1. And what's negative 3 plus 6? Positive 3. So I have 3 times negative 1, which is negative 3 times 3, negative 9. Everybody okay with that? Yes or no? So do the same thing with negative 2. What's negative 2 plus 2? 0. And what's 0 times anything? 0. So I just get a 0 there. All right, plug in a negative 5. What's negative 5 plus 2? Negative 3, negative 5 plus 6. Positive 1. So what's 3 times negative 2? Or sorry, 3 times negative 3? Negative 9 times positive 1? Negative 9. All right, plug in negative 6. What's negative 6 plus 2? Negative 4. And what's negative 6 plus 6? So what's 3 times negative 4 times 0? 0. Everybody okay with how to set up the table, yes or no? All right, everybody okay with how to graph with this style? Pretty much the same thing, right? Plot your points, you'll get the U, put your axis of symmetry, connect the dots. Now, one thing I do want to point out, what did we get for our P value here? Negative 2, and what do we get for our Q value? Negative 6. So what happened when I put negative 2 into the equation? When I put a negative 2 in for x, what did I get for y? Does that make sense to you or no? Okay, why? Why did I get that? What's the name of this form? Intercept form. Yesterday, what did I tell you are the other names for intercept? Intercept is one name. What are the other 3? Roots, zeros, or x values, right? X-intercepts, right? Or solutions. So the x-intercept means that's where we cross the x-axis. If we're on the x-axis, how big is our y value going to be? 0, right? That's where the name zeros come from. Okay? A 0 is the x value that makes y go to 0. A root is where you break through the x-axis. So if negative 2 is in fact an intercept, then when we plug it in for x, we should get a y of 0. Everybody okay with that? Yes or no? What was my other intercept? My other solution is what? Q equals negative 6. So when I plug that into the equation, what do I get? A 0. And again, that's because it is in fact an intercept or a solution, which means by definition, when I plug in that x value, I need to get a 0 for y. Everybody okay with that connection? So that's what these numbers actually represent here. P and Q is where the graph is going to cross the x-axis, and then we can average that distance in order to find the x-coordinate of the vertex because we know that the vertex has to be exactly in the middle of the two intercepts. So, any major questions on 15? And everybody okay with graphing, right? Hopefully it's getting mundane and repetitive and we stop making simple mistakes. Oh no, you graph it, but I'm not going to. We got 20 minutes and I got 2 more problems to get through and I want to give you guys some time to work. So if you don't need me to show you how, which most of you just said that you don't, I'm not going to waste your time. I'll move on and you can do it on your own time. So number 26. What does number 26 say, first of all, is the equation? X minus 6. Okay. And the directions say to write this in standard form, right? What is standard form for a quadratic? Y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, right? So when they say write in standard form, all they're really saying is get rid of the parentheses, right? We want you to multiply this out, so when you're done, you get y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. How many items do I have up here? How many chunks? How many sets of parentheses? 2, but I also have this 4 chilling outside, so it's kind of like it's in its own set of parentheses, right? So how many pieces do I really have? 3. How many things can I multiply together at one time? 2. So you have to pick which 2 things are you going to multiply together first, the first 2 or the last 2? The last 2? Okay, does it matter which one you pick? No, as long as you do the math right, okay? I'm going to do x plus 1 times x minus 6 first. So, the 4 that is outside, am I doing anything with that right now? No, so it just stays outside and chills. Inside, I'm going to take these 2 and multiply them together. So how do I do that? FOIL, which means what exactly? So what do you mean by first? Okay, so which items do I multiply together to get the f? Okay, x and x, which is the x squared. And then what do I do? Outside is x and negative 6, right? So I get negative 6x. And then what's after? So that's the f and the o. What's the I? Inside, which is the 1 and the x. So what's 1 times x? And what's the last? 1 and negative 6, which gets me negative 6. So like I said yesterday, I'm not a super huge big fan of using the word FOIL. I always think of it as just distributive property. Every term in the first set of parentheses has to get multiplied with every term in the second set of parentheses. So we go first term here in the first set of parentheses, multiply it with every term in the second set. So I take first term times first term by second term, right? So if there were 4 terms in the second set, I'd go x times the first term, x times the second term, x times the third term, x times the fourth term, right? And then I move on to the next term in the original set of parentheses, or in the first set of parentheses, and I do it again. Okay, so when you distribute, every term in the first set of parentheses has to get multiplied with every term in the second set of parentheses, regardless of how many of them you have. All right, so if you have 5 terms in one and 10 terms in the other, when you're done, you'll have 50 pieces. Everybody okay with that? Yeah? All right. So now, can anything group up inside our parentheses? X's. So what's negative 6x plus an x? Negative 5x. Okay. Now what do I do with this 4 outside? Okay, into which piece? The first, the middle, the last, or all 3? All 3. So distribute that in, and what's 4 times x squared? Okay, 4x squared. 4 times negative 5x. And 4 times 6. Plus 24. Oh, I didn't realize I did. It's supposed to be a negative. So, my apologies, Kristen. So that should be a negative 6 and then negative 24. So, sorry about the mistake, y'all. And that's it. You're done. Is that in standard form? ax squared plus bx plus c. That's all they want. Moving on. There's nothing to graph. Isn't that, what does it say in the book for directions? And then anything else? Real quick, for 15, it does actually ask you for more information. Doesn't it say graph the equation and label its intercepts? Okay. So its intercepts are the p and q value, right? So when x equals negative 2, you get y equals 0, so you will label that as an x-intercept. And then when x equals negative 6, y equals 0 again, that will be your second x-intercept. So just label it as x-intercept. Everybody okay with that? Yeah? So make sure that you're reading your directions all the way so you get full points. So, last problem, number 34. What does number 34 say? And what do the directions say? Okay. So, first of all, what form is this in? Is this standard vertex or intercept? It's vertex form, right? So what determines if a vertex form quadratic points up or down? Which letter? A. So let's identify our regular pieces. This is in fact vertex form. So what's my A? What's my H? And what's my K? Okay, so A is the one that determines whether the graph points up or down. Is A positive or negative? Negative, so up or down? Down. If a quadratic points down, does it have a minimum or a maximum? A max. So I do, in fact, have a maximum. Maximum at some point. When it comes to a minimum or a maximum, at what value is the min or max going to take place at? The what? Just in general for a quadratic. Where is the min or max? At the vertex, right? At the top. So at the vertex, right? So when they ask you to find the min or max, they're really just asking you to find the vertex. So if this is in vertex form, which letters determine where the vertex is? A, H, or K? H and K. So what is the x-coordinate to my vertex? H, which is -6. What is the y-coordinate to my vertex? Which is -12. You're done. The direction said, find the max for this, or find the min or max. We label it as a maximum, and it's at the vertex because it's in vertex form. We pull out our H and our K to find our vertex, and we're done. All right. Yes, sir. For 15, the directions say that they want you to label the intercepts when you graph. So when you graph this, this isn't the scale. This is me just kind of sketching real quick. Vertex is at -4, so it's like that. So you're going to have -4 and -12. You have some point like this, and then you're going to have some point here at -2, and this point here at -6. Alright, so you normally label your axis of symmetry, right? Label your vertex. But for these ones, they also want you to label the x-intercepts. So where am I crossing the x-axis at? I'm crossing here, right? When y equals 0, and I'm crossing here when y equals 0. So what are the values where y equals 0? -6 and -2, which are my P and my Q. So all you want to do is just label this as x-intercept. All right, and that's all I'm looking for. Okay, so for that middle set that includes 15, you do need to be marking where your intercepts are and labeling them. Everybody okay? Yes or no? Any last minute anything? So here is your homework. You have the remaining class time to get it done, which is about 15 minutes. So please get to work. If you have questions, let me know.